Goeiedag! Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And you know, to me, there is a total disconnect in the current ANC government's policy when it reflects how they're treating taxis, public taxis and private taxis, and how they're treating the hospitality industry. Now, in one hand, you got taxis where people are climbing into a confined space. They might be sanitizing their hands, but guess what? It's an airborne disease. One person in there has a disease and bang, it spreads right through the taxi. That's been allowed to continue, and I believe that is the greatest danger to transmission in South Africa, because something like 25% of all people in South Africa use a taxi every day. Huge percentage. And yet that great big hole in this kind of isolation campaign is being allowed to continue. Okay, so taxis continue as before, while when it comes to the hospitality industry, it comes to clubs, it comes to events where musicians play and these sort of things, now there's a huge restriction which is basically shutting those industries down. It is a complete disconnect. And when you got the Ministry of Health himself saying that South Africans can expect to have about 60% of the population affected by the coronavirus by actually getting it, it's clear that their efforts to isolate people from the coronavirus have failed, even though they're claiming such low figures for the coronavirus at this stage. Now, why are we talking about this? The hospitality industry is reeling with shock after the government implemented unprecedented guidelines restricting operating hours and the number of patrons at bars and restaurants, according to the South African Restaurant Association, a lobby organization for the restaurants. Now, clearly, they're not as strong as the taxi lobby, who clearly can do whatever they like. And we had an example of that last night when we had a musician, Winston, and we had a club owner talking about how this had completely shut down their livelihood, this move by the government. In other words, restricting people coming into an enclosed space when it came to entertainment or an event or something like that. But again, with taxis, it doesn't matter. Life goes on as per normal. Totally ridiculous. SA Restaurant Association Chief Executive Wendy Albert said yesterday that the industry was disappointed by the regulations as it was responsibly observing international standard hygiene guidelines and practices. Albert said there were a lot of unanswered questions and uncertainty in the industry over these regulations since there was no consultation before the announcement. Albert said, "Our industry is completely devastated. It's drastic times. A restaurant is a very sensitive business and our margins are very small. I need to understand what is going to happen to the staff. Is there a relief fund for compensation for staff that work in the industry? We've got hundreds of thousands of people that work in our industry that need to continue to be paid." Well, last night, as Winston said, he's going to be out in the streets next month because people have cancelled all his gigs as a result of this move by the ANC government, and he cannot afford to pay the rent. This is the ludicrousy of what's going on in South Africa. The National Treasury yesterday declined to comment on whether it would take cue from other countries like the US, which have made coronavirus relief packages available to businesses the hardest hit by the pandemic. But earlier this week, Finance Minister Tito Mboweni said that the government would redirect funds from some government programs, especially with the National Disaster Fund, to mitigate against the impact of COVID-19. Look, the South African government is bankrupt. They've looted the reserves. There's nothing left. The cupboard is bare. There are only crumbs. It's not like the US and like Australia where they can actually implement plans like that. Albert said that the industry had approached landlords and the banks to freeze leases and loan repayments, but third-party delivery services were not cooperating. She said they were desperately seeking answers from the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, said. Dlamini-Zuma on Wednesday invoked the Disaster Management Act and gazetted stringent regulations placing limitations on the sale, dispensing or transportation of alcoholic beverages to curb the spread of the coronavirus. This followed the declaration of the state of national disaster by President Cyril Ramaphosa on Sunday, as the number of coronavirus positive cases is on the rise in the country. Now, let me tell you why this is so incredibly ludicrous, okay? You've got supermarkets that stay open till 9 p.m. at night, and they've got a liquor section where you go in, you get your cabbage and you put it in your trolley, and you roll past the alcohol section, and it has to be locked off at 6 p.m. What makes getting a bottle of alcohol after 6 p.m. any different to taking a can of beans off the shelf and putting it in your trolley? Nothing. This is the L factor in action in South Africa. Logic is completely missing in action. The regulations order that all taverns, restaurants and clubs that are selling alcohol should be closed by 6 p.m. on weekdays and Saturdays and by 1 p.m. on Sundays, and also accommodate no more than 50 people at one time. The government also allowed businesses to skip unemployment insurance fund payments for the coming months and is expanding the UIF coverage to better protect affected workers. Now, I just want to talk to this comment about 50 people being the maximum that taverns, restaurants and clubs can have where they sell alcohol up to 6 p.m. The information I'm getting is that they're not doing it as per the size of the let's say the tavern. So if you've got a shebeen in, let's say, Soweto, and it's the size of, let's say, 2 bedrooms, you can actually have 50 people inside there serving them drinks. So they're basically cheek and jowl, absolutely no social distance between them, and that's legal. But if you've got a 400 square meter property, which means effectively with the social distance you could have 100 people in there, you're still restricted to 50 people. Once again, L factor, missing in action completely. The government has allowed businesses to skip unemployment insurance fund payments for the coming month and is expanding UIF coverage to better protect affected workers. The outbreak of the coronavirus has wreaked havoc in various industries, resulting in travel disruptions and restrictions across the world, closure of schools and businesses. Now, I'm going to say this one more time, and I'm not going to raise this subject again. Let's see where this goes. But, you know, you can't have two sets of rules here. If these private African taxis can be running around filled with people who might have the coronavirus, breathing on each other in close proximity for sometimes a long time, that is incredibly dangerous. That is how the virus is going to be transmitted. And when you compare that to the idea of someone going to, let's say, a bar, having a drink at night, there's probably less chance. In fact, there would be less chance of catching the virus in that environment. And yet that environment has been shut down by the government. So there's a clear set of double standards which are aimed at looking after their mates in the taxi industry while everybody in the hospitality industry is being hammered. And as I said in my earlier video, 60% of the population are going to get the virus anyway. Why worry? They're going to get it anyway. You know, why close down the economy? It's absolutely crazy. Okay, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video, please share this video, and above all, please stay safe.